Hi everybody, it's Jett Sett again, and today we're going to take a broken drill bit and turn it into a burnishing tool. So let's get started. As you can see here, I've got a selection of broken and dull drill bits, and the first thing I want to do before I turn it into a flesh setting tool or a burnisher is snap off the ends of the broken tool so that I have less metal to work with. I don't want to have to do a lot of filing and sanding more so than I need to. So we're going to take this drill bit here with a square pair of pliers and just snap off the end, just like that. So we have a piece that ends up no drill bit, a little bit of a point, and then an area that actually can be filed down fairly easily to make the burnisher. Since the drill bit is actually hardened in order to use it as a drill, the first thing you want to do after you've taken the end off of it is to anneal it with your torch. And what that means is bringing it up to a cherry red and then letting it air cool on your bench, either on your charcoal block or on your soldering pad. So let's do that first. Like I said, you want to make this a hot cherry red in order to anneal it, because remember, this is steel. It's not silver, it's not brass, it's not a soft metal, it's a hard metal. So we're going to heat this to a bright cherry red, especially on the end where we're planning on filing it, and then we're going to let this air cool. My broken drill bit has been annealed, and now I want to file and shape it in the shape of a burnisher using my files, and then eventually we'll move on to sandpaper. The one thing I want to mention is when you're working with steel, you want to keep your bench pin and all your files separate from what you would normally be working with. If you're working with brass or copper or silver, you don't have to worry about contamination. But when you're working with steel, you want to make sure that you don't contaminate your silver, your brass, or your copper, because otherwise it'll leave pits in the metal and it'll actually make your piece destroyed. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out my file that I would use only for steel, and we're going to go ahead and start shaping this piece so that it looks like a blunted point. Now remember, we want this to be fairly blunt. We don't want it to be too pointed, because otherwise it's going to gouge the metal instead of just pressing it down. So I'm going to take a little bit off the top here. Not much, just a little. Okay. Now I'm going to change to my sandpaper, and I'm going to use my sandpaper disc instead of a hand sanding, because this will actually go a lot faster. Okay, once I've got the burnisher in the shape that I want, I'm going to move on to my hand sanding, and I'm going to start with a 320 grit. That way I can smooth out the marks from the sanding disc and then blunt the tip just a little bit more. And also, just like you would with your files and your bench pen, you want to keep the sandpapers that you use on steel separate from all of your other sandpaper so that it doesn't contaminate as well. I think this looks pretty good, so I'm going to go ahead and switch up to my 400 grit. Do some more sanding. I'm turning as I sand so that I can get an even sand on all of the pointed area of the broken drill bit that we're turning into the burnisher. I'm also making sure that my end is blunt and not too pointed. Now I can move on to the polishing stage, and what I need to do is high polish this before I temper it, because I want it to keep the very high shine so that when I'm using the tool to burnish my flush set, I'm actually keeping that high polish, and it'll transfer to the metal as I polish. The easiest way I found to do it is to put your burnishing tool into your flex shaft and use a polishing wheel that you only use for steel, and run it with your pedal, and every once in a while stop it and check it. Now this has polishing compound on it. This is the white diamond first. And then I'll progressively move up to the red rouge, which is the shiniest. And that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. That's looking good too. Now remember, you don't have to high polish the entire burnisher. You just want to make sure that the point is nice and shiny. That looks good. So I'll move on to the final stage, which is the red rouge. And finally, I've got a nice high shine polish on here. So the next thing we're going to do is take this back to my charcoal block and we're going to temper it. And I've got a couple of tricks to know when it's actually tempered. So let's move on. Okay, you can see my setup here. I have my burnishing tool that I just finished sanding and polishing in a pair of third hands because I need an extra hand for one of the tricks that I need to perform in order to tell whether or not this is annealed. What you'll need is a magnet and some cross-locking tweezers so we can take this out quickly and quench it before it goes too far to annealing instead of tempering. So I'm going to go ahead and leave my magnet close. I'm going to grab my torch. And I probably should put this in the other hand so my torch will be on the piece quickly. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus my heat down here at the bottom so that I can make that hard and the top part can be left annealed. It's not going to hurt it. We're going to go ahead and temper this bottom area here, and the way you can tell whether or not it's tempered is if your magnet stops sticking to it. So we're going to apply heat and keep testing it with a magnet to see if it's still magnetized. Once it's not magnetized, we can take and quench it and then be able to test it one more time and see if it's okay to start polishing and sanding once again and getting it ready to be the tool. So I'm going to keep my magnet there, light my torch. And I'm going to continuously heat it till it turns red, and then I'm going to test it with my magnet. And it's no longer magnetized, so I know that it has been tempered. So I'm going to hold on to that, grab my tweezers really quickly, and quench it. And that should have hardened it. And the way we're going to test it out to see if it has, we're going to take our steel file here and run it across. And it should run across the metal without grabbing. And you can hear the metal, it's just sliding right off the end of the metal. That means that it has been hardened, heat hardened. So now we can take it back to the bench pen and do another round of sanding and polishing, and then it'll be ready to use. Okay, our burnisher has been hardened, and now we're going to go back through and resand and repolish the end of it. The easiest way to do that is to put it in your flex shaft and use it on your sandpapers. And we're going to start with the 320 grit. Move up to the 400. And then finally the 600. And now we can get on to polishing it. I'm going to take it out of my flex shaft and grab my white diamond polishing wheel. Do that first. Should go pretty quickly because it is hardened. Okay, then we're going to move on to the greystar, which is the medium polish grit. And I'm putting downward pressure on the polishing wheel just to give it a little bit extra help. Now we're ready for the red rouge, which is the final polishing tip. Okay, so we have a nice high polish here, and now it's ready to test on our flush setting. And here is the flush setting I did just the last week, and we're going to go ahead and test it and see if it leaves any extraneous marks. And it looks beautiful. Oops. Let's try it on this one. Same high polish. Works beautifully. So now we have a fully hardened flush setting burnisher. So in today's video, we took a broken drill bit and turned it into a burnishing tool. I hope this was helpful for you, and if so, give me a like, leave me a comment below, and share this with your jewelry friends, and I'll see you next time. Bye!